What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here in collaboration with 138 MMA, and we're going to give you a super early preview of UFC Fight Night Dern versus Jan. And it's looking like a pretty big card. There's 14 fights on the card, so we're going to try and get through the card pretty quickly as we want to make this video less than half an hour. So, do you think that this is a pretty good card, 138?
Yeah, I think this is a really solid card. A lot of good matchups. Only a few mismatches on my end.
That's pretty cool. So, what do you think about Jessica Penne versus Tabitha Richie?
Okay, so Tabitha Richie here. She has the youth. She has the grappling. Striking should be about even. I think Tabitha Richie, this is her fight to lose. She should be the better fighter pretty much overall. The reach advantage is the only thing that really is in Penne's favor. Richie should probably win this fight, though, probably 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I think Richie should win this fight. I think Penne's getting a lot of shade on Tapology. 90% of people are picking Richie, so it'll be interesting to see how wide the odds are. But yeah, Penne, she looked old in her last fight. In my opinion, she really got chopped up with the leg kicks from Emily Ducote and lost the decision there. So yeah, Tabitha Richie potentially a jump into the rankings or almost into the rankings if she beats Penne, because I think Ducote became a ranked fighter off a win over Penne. So we'll move on to the next one. You've got Olynyk versus Latifi, a fight that has been booked, I would say, about 3 times now. And yeah, I think Olynyk, he just got his 60th win, but this man is 45 years old. He's on the wrong end of his 40s. Latifi's almost 40 years old as well. But what do you think about this matchup here?
So, if this fight happens, which is a big if, honestly, I like Olynyk in this match. I think obviously the ground's good in his favor, but also he has a pretty big height and reach advantage. So I think that even if it stays on the feet, Olynyk has an advantage there because his striking isn't terrible. It's not good, but it's not terrible. And I think it's just enough to edge out a really, really close 29-28 or get the submission.
That's fair enough. I'm almost leaning Alia Latifi in this one here. He is the wrestler. He's probably going to be the one initiating the wrestling sequences, I would imagine. And I think if he uses wrestling and stays safe, he should be able to win the fight that way. And that is how I'm going to side. I'm slightly going with Alia Latifi, but Olynyk, I do love Olynyk. I was really hoping he would get his 60th win at some point, and got it over Jared Vandera, so that's pretty cool. But I'm going to side with Ilia Latifi in this matchup here. I think it probably should go the distance, though. And in the next one, you've got Maxime
Should,
Grishin.
yeah.
Now you've got Maxime Grishin versus Felipe Linz. Now, Felipe Linz coming to the UFC off winning PFL quite a few years ago, and he lost a couple of fights, and recently beat Marcin Prachnio in a pretty decent fight. And Maxime Grishin as well, he's been up and down in his career. Both of these guys are pretty old at this point, but they're still looking pretty good. Who do you have in this matchup here?
I'll take Griffin here, but I'm not confident in this fight whatsoever. Inconsistency on both ends. Obviously, they kind of win one, lose one. I'll take Griffin just. I just think he's a little bit tougher in the fight, but I don't think either guy really has a high ceiling.
Yeah, I think at this point of both of their careers, I think we're seeing the end of them. 37 years old and 38 years old, respectively for each of them. But I like Grecian as well. He looked pretty good against William Knight, and that's also the fight which William Knight missed weight by, I want to say, about 10 pounds. I remember it was one of the biggest weight misses in UFC history, and Grecian still took the fight, so props to him, and he did end up winning, which is good looks. But yeah, you got Joaquim Silva taking on Jesse Ronson. This is Joaquim Silva's first fight in over a year. Jesse Ronson's been a little bit more active, but he did recently lose to Rafa Garcia. What do you think about this fight, and who do you think is going to win?
Well, I think the UFC is trying to throw the oldest card in history at us. Ronson coming in at 36. That's
Yeah.
not exactly a spring chicken. But I'll take Silva slightly. I just don't think Ronson's done very well lately, and neither is Silva, but I guess a little better. I don't. This is one of those matchups where it's like I'd stay away from it. I'll take
Yeah.
Silva, but only for the sake of making a pick.
I think it's just a weird fight, to be honest. I'm gonna go with Joaquim Silva. It's not a fight you can be confident in. Jesse Ronson's looked okay. I mean, he did beat Nicholas Dalby, but then he popped for something under USADA, which is why he took so long off. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Joaquim Silva here in his return fight. He's been knocked out twice in his last two fights. That yeah, it's a weird one. I don't see Ronson knocking out Silva though, so I'll side with Silva as well, with not a lot of confidence. And now you've got Yaisina Rosenstrike versus Chris Dalkaus, two heavyweight prospects that are on 2 fight losing streaks right now. What do you make of this matchup?
Okay, so this is another one where I hate to say it, but I'm gonna have to take the underdog in Dawkins. I think he has the more well-rounded skill set, but I mean Rosenstrike could put him out with one shot. I just think that if you're gonna give me Dawkins as the dog, both guys coming off of 2 losses, I'll take Dawkins. Neither guys look super good coming off of two losses in a row, obviously, but I think Dawkins is. I mean, Dawkins got knocked out by Curtis Blades, which didn't look good at all. But if you get him at dog money, you might as well take him on both guys coming off 2 losses. So that's my shot.
Yeah, I'd agree. Dalkaus is definitely the more well-rounded fighter. He's got a black belt in BJJ, like his brother. I believe his brother does as well. Right, Yosino Rosenstrike is my pick though.
Mm-hmm.
I like his kickboxing background. I haven't liked Dalkaus in his last couple of fights. In fact, even though he destroyed Shamil Abdurakhimov was tagging him with a couple of shots that Shamil really shouldn't be tagging you at this point of his career. So I think Yosino Rosenstrike should be able to get something, and he is the favourite on Tapology as well. So yeah, this should be an interesting fight because Dalkaus was touted as potentially the future of
Fair
the
enough.
UFC, but well, the UFC heavyweight division is one of those guys alongside Aspinall, but he hasn't looked great in his last couple of fights, so it'll be interesting to see if he bounces back. And now we've got Ulisha Stoliorenko versus Chelsea Chandler, and Chelsea Chandler is making her debut for the UFC. She's only 4-1, but she's on a 4 fight win streak over girls that on paper look like they were pretty good at the time against a few undefeated fighters, but and I'm going to be open and honest, I know nothing about Chelsea Chandler. I haven't actually looked into this fight too much because the card is a couple of weeks away. But Stoliorenko was always a big fade for me, but she did get a submission win over Jessica Rose Clark, who I guess is kind of someone that a lot of girls are getting arm bars over right now. But what do you think of this fight, 138?
So this one, I actually had to look into this one a bit when I saw it on the card. Normally, I would fade Stolyarenko hard, like you said, just fade her every time. But I looked at Chandler's record, and it looks better than it should because she's beating these girls when they have like 2-0, 3-0, 4 records, and then they go on losing to her to lose all of their fights for this. So when she's beating these girls, they look good. But looking at their record past that point, it shows that they really weren't that good. They had also just beaten tomato cans. So for me, I think Stolyarenko has better experience, better competition, and that win over Jessica Rose Clark makes me think that she can probably get it done on the ground. So, and I believe the odds are even right now. Last I saw, they were both -110. I think Stolyarenko at -110 over a girl who's completely unproven against tomato cans is, it's a shot I'd take. I do like Stolyarenko here quite a bit.
I never thought that I'd pick Yulia Stolyarenko in a UFC fight. I picked Jessica Rose Clark to beat her, and Stolyarenko won very quickly with an armbar. But yeah, I guess from what you've seen for now, I'll side with Stolyarenko. But as I said, I genuinely haven't looked into tape, so I don't actually know what each of their two styles are. So I won't give a pick on that one there. I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about with that fight. And now we've got Brendan Allen versus Krzysztof Jotko. This is actually a fight that I think Brendan Allen wanted. I know Brendan Allen and Krzysztof Jotko have some sort of beef or disagreement because I remember looking at Brendan Allen's Instagram and he called out Jotko on Instagram. I believe it was on his story. And then eventually the fight got made. So I'm going to side with Brendan Allen in this matchup here. He had a pretty controversial decision over Jacob Malkoon, which I do think that Allen won. But Jotko's on a good win streak now, and even a win over Gerald Meerschaert at this point is somewhat looking like a good win, to be fair. So what do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, Allen has been so good to me in the betting market. I cannot pick against him, so I might be a little bit biased. But I do like Brennan Allen here. I haven't been as impressed with Jocko in most of his fights. The win over Miart, that does age really, really well. I don't know. I don't think he actually beat Aaron Sanders. I thought that was a bad decision. I mean, it's been a while, but uh, with that said, I do think Allen's the better fighter in most areas here, especially when it gets to the ground. Allen's got some pretty good submission wins, so I'm gonna take Brennan Allen for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Allen in this matchup as well. Randy Costa taking on Guido Canetti. And Guido Canetti is a guy that I said when he fought Chris Moutinho, this is the UFC giving Chris Moutinho the easiest fight in bantamweight in the UFC right now, and he goes out and he knocks out Chris Moutinho, something that Sean O'Malley could not do, which is crazy. And Randy Costa's a very powerful puncher. I'm going to be going with Randy Costa by KO in this matchup here. I think that Randy Costa just hasn't quite lived up to his potential, but he did look really good in a loss to Adrian Yanez in the first round. He did hit Yanez with some good shots, but then he did lose after that. But Guido Canetti pushing 43 at bantamweight. What do you think of this fight?
Well, I think if Randy Costa can't get this one done, you have to get rid of him. There's no way he gets to stick around after this if he cannot
Yeah.
win. But I definitely think Costa wins. He should win. Guido Canetti's not that good, and he's 42 years old. Like I said, oldest card in UFC history. It has to be. But yeah, Randy Costa should get this one done pretty easily.
Yeah, with that being said, actually, Chris Moutinho fought Sean O'Malley and then lost to Guido Canetti, and now he's been released. And I believe most guys get 3 fights in the UFC. I'm not too sure what kind of contracts they're signing, but a lot of guys, if they lose 3 fights, that's when they get cut. But Chris Moutinho lost two, and then he was released. I think maybe the UFC just kind of knew that he wasn't ready for their pool of talent, and yeah, Randy Costa really should win this one then. Guido Canetti, 43 years old, was on a losing streak as well against Chito Vera. To be fair, he's good. Bernard Bakare is pretty good too. But then he did lose that split decision against Mana Martinez in a fight which I thought Mana Martinez was going to win by KO. That yeah, I mean Randy Costa really should be able to get past Guido Canetti at this point of his career anyway. Now Mike Davis versus Vyacheslav Borshev. Vyacheslav Borshev taking this fight on very short notice, but I am super high on Vyacheslav Borshev, but the blueprint to beat him's been written. Mark Diakase put on the wrestling boots and really showed what he's all about in that matchup there. But I'm super high on Vyacheslav Borshev. I know this guy's got over 200 amateur boxing fights. I think he's like a national boxing champion in Russia, and or kickboxing champion in Russia, and he's just got really good striking in general. And he's taking on Mike Davis here, who hasn't fought for over a year and a half. He's got a pretty good win over Mason Jones, who was undefeated at the time. I'm going to be going with Vyacheslav Borshev by knockout in this one here. No one's picking him, but I'm too high on Vyacheslav Borshev to give up now. Who do you have in this matchup?
Yeah. I agree with you. I got Borshev in this one. I do think that the blueprint to beat him, like you said, has already been put out, but he trains at Team Alpha Male. So you've got to imagine that his grappling is getting better. So because of that, I'm going to take Borshev as well.
Yeah, I've got Borshev, but the counter to that is, though, Borshev, when he was taken down by Mike Diakase, he really did look like he didn't know what he was doing, which was a bit strange, but he's taken 5 months off. I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to get a knockout over Davis. I think a lot of people are fading Borshev, which I understand. I completely understand that, but yeah, Borshev knocked out Dakota Bush. He knocked out Chris Duncan, who's now in the UFC. Chris Duncan is pretty hittable, as we did see in his recent fight, but yeah, I like Borshev. I'm not going to fade Borshev. I'm too high on this guy to give up now. So yeah, Sadiq Yusuf versus Don Chinese. Don Chinese taking this fight on somewhat 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks notice. A little bit of a weird one though, because Sadiq Yusuf actually wanted to fight on the card that just happened. But yeah, Don Chinese has stepped in and they're going to give him a few weeks to prepare. I don't think it makes too much of a difference though. We're talking about the number 12 ranked featherweight in the UFC right now, taking on a guy making his debut on short notice. Maybe Don Chinese could surprise Siddiq Yunus with a first round KO because that's what he's done. He's actually on a pretty good first round KO streak right now. But I'm still going to side with Siddiq Yusuf. I think he wins this matchup. And who do you have in this one here?
I mean, it should be Super Sadiq by absolute domination, but something to take note of is the newcomer, Janus, has a win over Jay Ellis, who has well over 100 fights, although he also has over 100 losses.
Yeah.
So take that into account. But Sadiq Yusuf should absolutely dominate this fight.
Well, Don Chinese actually, to his credit, has good wins on his record in general. Like, he beat Cody Fistler, who is a former UFC fighter, and he also defeated a man very early on in his career that's in the UFC right now. I'm going to get his name. That is someone else. I'm thinking about someone else. But, yeah, no. The point is, Don Chinese does have a couple of good wins on his record. Cody Fistler is a former UFC fighter. And now we move on. Hayoni Barcelos versus Trevin Giles. This is a good one. Hayoni Barcelos, though, he took on a short notice opponent in Victor Henry, and Victor Henry beat Hayoni Barcelos at his own game, really, which was quite crazy. But I'm not ready to fade Barcelos just yet. I'm gonna pick Hayoni Barcelos, but man, they're not really not giving Trevin Jones a comeback matchup. Man, they're really throwing him in there with Barcelos. I thought maybe after a couple of losses they'd give Trevin Jones a favourable fight because he's an exciting fighter and he's a lot better than his record suggests. But I think we're going to see Hayani Barcelos outpoints Trevin Jones to decision, potentially outvolume him, just outwork him. What do you think about this fight?
I think they're doing Jones dirty here. I mean, Barcelos is the same guy that has a win over Said Nurmagomedov. Yeah, how are you going to throw him in there against Trevin Jones? That's just mean, especially with Jones coming off a couple of losses. I think Barcelos should get the win here. I mean, maybe age is catching up to him. Maybe he isn't as good as he was in his last fight. At a certain point in your 30s, especially at lower weight classes, you do decline pretty quick. But at the same time, man, that guy is skill for skill. I think he has Jones beat in pretty much everything except for explosiveness. So I'll take Barcelos for sure.
Well, Hayoni Barcelos has been that number 16 ranked guy for a long time, like the guy that you have to beat to keep moving forward. And then, and then Hayoni Barcelos, I mean, even defending the rankings in a way, he's always been that guy that should be ranked, but he's not. But you know that he's at the top of the non-ranked guys, and he just never quite broke into it. But giving him Trevin Jones, so I would say after a couple of losses, is towards the bottom of the bantamweight division. Maybe they want Hayoni Barcelos to get another win here. But I'm pretty confident in picking Barcelos here. Now, John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos. This should be a pretty exciting fight. I don't think it's too favourable for Santos. Castaneda is very heavily favoured in Tapology votes, but Daniel Santos had a pretty good fight against Julio Arce in his debut, and that was his first fight in over about 2.5 years or so. He fights super aggressive. He fights out like a guy out of shoot box, and but I think that John Castaneda is gonna beat him. John Castaneda actually has a very good win over Miles Johns, which he had looked amazing in his last fight. So who do you have in this matchup here?
Yeah, I think this one has potential to be the fight of the night for me. I do think Castaneda probably gets the win. But this fight is probably what I'm looking forward to the most as far as skill for skill matchups. I do think Castaneda should be able to pull away though. So I'm gonna take Castaneda.
Yeah, I agree. I think Daniel Santos. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a guy that could get a few good wins in the UFC, but they're not giving him any favors. Giving him John Castaneda, who's on a win streak in the UFC right now. But yeah, I'll go with Castaneda to win this fight as well. And we're already up to the co-main event. We've really raced through this card. We've got Randy Brown versus Francisco Goat Naldo, the man that is 44 years old, and he's still doing it, man. He just beat Danny Roberts. Wow, he beat Danny Roberts. He landed some good shots on Roberts. Roberts is pretty well known to having a pretty bad chin, though. He beat Dwight Grant by split decision. Lost to Muslim Salikov, who's a borderline ranked fighter. I mean, he's 44 years old and he's still doing it. This man's crazy. But It's a 6'3" guy versus a guy that's 5'9" at the end of the day. And Randy Brown uses his range pretty well. And you saw that in his fight against Chaos Williams. Personally, I do think Chaos Williams won that fight, but that's not what this video is about. Who do you think is going to win this fight? I do have Randy Brown to win this one.
Yeah. I mean, against most people, I would pick Trinaldo, but in this one, I don't. I mean, you got a 6'3" versus 5'9". You got a 44-year-old in Trinaldo. Like I said, oldest card ever. So I'm going to pick Randy Brown here, but I also do agree with you. I think he did lose that fight against Chaos Williams. So with that said, he did show that he has a good chin in that fight, and that's what he's going to need to beat Trinaldo here. He's going to be able to wear one or two shots because at some point he's going to get caught. But I think Brown can hang in there. I think he can use his range and probably get the victory that way.
Yeah, I've got Randy Brown. I think he's going to outpoint Trinaldo, probably from distance, for the most part. I mean, yeah, I think he was gifted a decision against Chaos Williams, but that is what it is. Trinaldo hits hard. He's 44 years old. As you said, there's some really old fighters on this card, man. I didn't even realize the whole card is somewhat old, which is quite crazy. That now we've got the main event: Mackenzie Dern versus
It's gotta be a
Yanan
record
Yan.
for the most 40-year-olds.
Yeah, it has to be. So there's 84% picking Mackenzie Dern. I'm gonna go against that. I'm actually thinking of picking Xiaonan Yan in this matchup here. And so the main reason for that is I think she beat Marina Rodriguez. I really do. I think she won the first 2 rounds of that matchup. Mackenzie Dern, her striking is just terrible. If she can't get the fight to the mat and she can't work her game. And I think, well, I'm thinking Xiaonan Yan working with Team Alpha Male for a pretty good amount of time. And also we just saw how good Song Yadong's takedown defense was, and he was fighting out of Team Alpha Male. Hopefully that has worked for Xiaonan Yan. She's got really good takedown defense herself and can defend the takedowns of Dern. I just genuinely believe Xiaonan Yan is that much of a better striker. I think she should be able to beat Mackenzie Dern in this matchup. Who do you have in this fight?
Well, so I think this is a nightmare matchup stylistically for down on if it goes to the ground, obviously.
Oh yeah,
Mackenzie
I
Dern's
agree.
probably the best female grappler. Oh yeah, easily the best female grappler, probably in every division, honestly. But the problem is I don't know if Dern can get it to the ground. I think it's gonna be a back. I've actually switched my pick a couple of times on this one. I'm gonna slightly lean Dern at this point, but by the time this fight rolls around, I may switch back again because I was on Yan Xiaonan originally. I think she's a far better striker. That fight with Rodriguez, I do believe I had money on Rodriguez, so I was rooting for her. And then even at the end, I was kind of like, oh man, she lost. And then when they announced the decision, I was gifted one. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think that Dern should be able to get this win if it gets to the ground at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if it hits the mat, it's over. You know, I mean, I genuinely do believe it's like that. I do actually think if it hits the mat, it's done. It's like when Mackenzie Dern fought what was her name, Nina Nunes. She got the fight to the mat once, and the fight was over pretty much. So maybe the same with Xiaonan Yan. I mean, she did get wrestled and then ground and pounded out in a pretty bad position from Carla Esparza. Can Mackenzie Dern do that to Xiaonan Yan, especially at this point where Xiaonan Yan, her takedown defense will definitely be a lot better than it was. I mean, I still think Xiaonan Yan, she's just that much of a better striker than Dern. Dern's striking it's not great. It's just not great. And yeah, I'm gonna side with Yan just for that reason. I can't trust Dern striking at all, and I know for a fact that she only started sparring somewhat recently as well.
The thing to think about, though.
What's there to think about?
Yeah. So the thing to think about though is that if it's over 5 rounds, and if it goes to most fights end up on the ground at least once.
Yeah, I know.
And if it ends up on the ground at least once over 25 minutes, I think it's over. So Xiaonan can win every minute of the fight until that 1 minute ends up on the ground.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I think Dern, but I'll probably switch back.
Yeah, I know. I'm expecting almost everyone to pick Dern, but Yeah, I
Like,
just I can't trust her, you know. I can't trust that level of striking. I mean, especially against Yan, who hits pretty hard as well. I mean, she hasn't got a knockout in a
she
very
does.
long time. She probably hasn't got a knockout in her UFC career potentially. But yeah, I mean, she hurt Rodriguez pretty not badly, but she hurt Rodriguez in the first round, and that's a really good striker that made Dern look like a complete amateur on the feet. So yeah, it's a tough one. I know it's a tough one. I really hope Yan doesn't shoot for a takedown. I don't think she will, but if she does, I'll be so upset. But yeah, I think Dern's going to be trying to initiate some grappling sequences, and then I'm hoping Yan defends the takedowns and just looks so much better on the feet. But yeah, it's such a weird one. I mean, Mackenzie Dern, she's got great grappling, but her wrestling to get the fight to the ground is not as good as the jiu-jitsu. Would I say that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I don't mind a Dern pick at all. That I don't trust her, and that's really what it comes down to. So I think we'll wrap up the video. We're sitting at about 26 minutes now. And is there anything you wanted to add to the card? I think we've covered everything pretty well, but is there any comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah. A couple of quick things. So if I'm looking at this card for mismatches, and I like to point out the mismatches for sure, I think the biggest mismatch on the card is Tabitha Richie. She should have the clearest advantage here. And I would also say that probably Randy Brown would be another one, as much as it hurts me to say that. And then the third match I see is Stoliorenko over Chandler. Chandler's getting that buzz for being, the hot prospect coming in like 4-1, but she's tomato cans. So there's three mismatches on the card. I could be totally wrong. I guess, and Sadiq Yusuf. Can't leave that one off.
I'll throw
Four
Randy
mismatches on the
Costa in there
card.
too, maybe. Yeah,
That's a
I
good
think
call. Okay, so we've got five mismatches on the
we've
card.
got
We'll put
quite
Randy
a
Costa in
few.
there too, just for the fact that he's.
There might be parlays to be made. I don't like betting women's MMA at all, but I think I don't mind Costa. I'm assuming he's going to be not a big favorite, but a decent favorite. I think Yusuf might be a pretty sizable favorite as well.
I
But
think he's minus 300.
Yusuf is minus 300 or Costa's minus 300.
Costa, I think Costa's minus 300, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a little bit. I don't know. I think that might be a little bit wide, to be honest. I know it's Guido Canetti, but Randy Costa. I don't know. I think maybe Costa minus 250 would have been a better look, but I guess there's not too much difference there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, what's Canetti gonna do to Costa? I guess is kind of a good question. Yeah, I think we'll end the video there. Thanks everyone for watching. 138 MMA. He's got his own YouTube channel. I'll link it in the title with a little @ symbol, so you can find it pretty easily. And I'll pin his channel on the top comment as well with all the timestamps when I upload the video. So thanks for watching. And this was a collaboration with 138 MMA, as I said in the intro and just then. So yeah, thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you all in the next one.